Hi guys, I'm Nick.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Cat's Pajamas. Today we're going to talk about what I think might be the most feminist sport out there. Skydiving.
Boom.
And it starts right...
Meow.
So Aaron, what falls faster through the sky? A man or a woman? This is an important question.
I'm going to say a man.
Okay. Now, anybody out there know Newtonian physics? Alright kids, here's our PSA. If you drop a feather or a bowling ball in a vacuum, they actually will fall at the exact same time.
Really?
Yeah. You call yourself a nerd?
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well a man's surface area might actually be larger, so he might fall slower, but because of the tension that the air pressure tension that he has. But yeah, they basically fall at the same speed.
Okay.
This, to me, is the great equalizer in skydiving.
Okay.
Maybe just metaphorical, it may not actually have any effect on it, but it's a good metaphor.
For equality.
Yeah, we should put that on a card. Or if you're a skydiver, go ahead and feel free to put that on a card.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I can fall just as fast as a man.
Yeah.
Or anywhere you can fall, I can fall faster.
That doesn't sound like a
Really?
good thing.
Okay. So, the history of skydiving is really interesting. The French actually used to have an aeronautic corps, which they would use hydrogen balloons, because they didn't have hot air balloons yet, so they would fill balloons with highly combustible gas and make observation decks for overlooking enemy troop movements.
So hang them over the Hindenburg and
Yes.
they can get shot at.
And basically for these people to get down, they had to either take a zip line or climb down a rope. So through the years, a lot of people started coming up with different ways of escaping from these observation decks.
Okay.
And so
jumping is obviously the
jumping
biggest way.
would be a little difficult when you're 900 feet up in the air.
Oh, okay.
So one of the people that did this was named Garnieri, or Garnierin. I'm not sure how the French pronounce their last letters anymore. Maybe it was different back then. This guy was actually captured and put into a Hungarian gulag, which sounds like a delicious soup, but it's not.
I think that's goulash.
Oh,
it's pretty
right.
close to that.
Sorry.
Hungarian goulash. My mom
Be
makes a
careful
killer
what you
Hungarian
order,
goulash.
because you might end up in jail. So he was actually captured. So maybe because of that, he was trying to think of faster ways to have escaped when he was captured.
Yeah.
Because he was part of the aeronautic French corps.
What is it? Invention is born from necessity, or necessity is the mother
and too
of
much
invention?
time on your hands.
Yeah. I could see
like
him...
solitary confinement in a goulash. And, fun fact,
Okay.
the first war balloon that was used by the French Aeronautic Corps, do you know its name? We've done this a few times, so he does know the name.
I do know the name of it. I could never say it in French, but it's...
L'Entreprenant.
There you go. It's the Enterprise.
The Enterprise! What?
Insert Star Trek theme.
No,
I can't do that. Okay, no, we can get
okay, sorry. In a galaxy far, far... No, wait, that's the wrong...
That's Star Wars.
Oh, no. I'm going to get so many letters. Anyway, Garnierin was the first to actually use a parachute. And it didn't look anything like what we would think a parachute looked like. It was basically a basket attached to a parasol, which was then attached to a balloon. He got up to a height of 3,200 feet and detached the balloon from the parasol.
I would think if I'm trying this the first time, I would go like, let's see 100 feet, see how that works.
I think it's still... Actually, it's more dangerous to
drop from 100.
To parachute from a low distance than it is from a high distance, unless you get wind shear.
Okay.
But so he releases this balloon. It goes God knows where into some Parisian patisserie, and then he just starts plummeting. Now the parasol, or for the lay, umbrella, starts doing what umbrellas do when you drop them, and it opens up. Unfortunately, this was his first prototype, and he didn't understand the concept of venting holes, which is to release excess air pressure that's caught within the apparatus.
So it's like those cheap ones you get at the store where it's just like a piece of cloth, and then you just throw it, and then it goes...
Exactly, and the way I like to think of it is the G.I. Joes that you got when you were a kid, and you drop them off the roof, and they'd always do this as they would follow them, or like Dumbo drop, you know... graphic.
Bad movie, though. Don't watch the movie.
So, basically, if you can imagine being that G.I. Joe as you're plummeting towards Paris. So he did this in Parc Monceau. I'm sure that's pronounced wrong. In the middle of Paris. But by the time he landed, he was 19 miles outside of the city limits. Now, whether that was by design or because he just really fucked up, I could not tell you. But 19 miles in an umbrella seems pretty crazy.
Yeah. Or he got caught in a jet stream and that thing just, like, shot him out there.
Or that. So, 2 years later, his wife, Jeanne, followed suit, this time with vents.
Okay.
Which continues the long progeny of
women do it better?
Women fixing the stupid stunts that men do. Now, funny story about Jeanne begins with a bit of a scandal that was surrounding the first woman to go up in a balloon. Back then, it was actually considered a very modern and cool thing to go up in balloons. It was at exhibitions all over the place. And the public didn't really have a problem with it.
Okay.
The public was actually very excited about a woman, it being such a safe mode of I don't think you'd call it travel. What would you call ballooning?
I think at that time it's just more of like a
adventure.
Adventure, yeah. Something
adventure sport.
Excite you,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they thought it was, such a modern and safe and exciting version or exciting enterprise that a woman could participate in. But the Public Bureau of Police actually made an injunction against his exhibition. And what they did with that was they cited... they weren't sure how the decreased air pressure would affect the delicate female organs and their propensity for losing consciousness.
Right. They had nothing to do with the corsets they were wearing.
The French also invented the corset.
Completely cut off
so
their supply.
causing the problem that you're complaining about.
Yeah.
So eventually, they also cited a vague moral objection to such close proximity being shared unchaperoned. That was a real thing that the Police Bureau of Paris said. So, eventually, the courts lifted the injunction, saying that there was no more scandal in seeing two people of different sexes ascend in a balloon than it was to see them jump into a carriage. And they were right.
Yeah.
So, on July 8th, 1798, yet another unsung day of victory for feminists, Garnier ascended with a young woman known only as Citoyenne Henry, which was the famous French king. So it was basically a nom de guerre, or nom de air. Dad joke. So she was just a public figure that wasn't really known much. She was like Bat Boy.
Okay.
But it was later proposed and strongly believed that she actually was one of Garnieren's students, who ended up being his wife, Jeanne.
I get so...
Much to the chagrin of the police bureau.
I get it.
So...
No.
What are your thoughts on that? What happened in the balloon stays in the balloon.
What happens in the balloon stays in the balloon, exactly. Quarter Mile Hot Club, baby.
So we move forward to the 20th century, and we find a guy named Charles Broadwick. He invented what he called the coat pack, which was where the parachute was held in a backpack instead of being held either in your arms or floating above you or below you, so it made it much safer.
Much safer.
And also what was called the static line, which would pull out the parachute and then actually snap from the weight of the human and then allow the parachute to balloon out.
That sounds pretty close to what we got now.
So it is. It's very close to what we have now. So in 1908, a 15-year-old woman by the name of Georgia Tiny
because she was huge, like super fat.
Oh, yeah. No, she was 85 pounds and 5 foot nothing. She saw Charles for the first time drop out of a balloon and was hooked. She started touring with him. They did a whole show where she was his daughter and or wife, which kind of got creepy. But they always dressed up in nice suits, and it was a very neat and clean show, they said. And they were always very exacting on how they did everything. So their gear got more that way also. They started making stuff a lot safer, started getting nice folds and everything to it. So Tiny starts touring around with Charles and eventually actually becomes his adoptive daughter.
Aww.
And then she starts doing work for the army. So in World War I, the Allied forces didn't use parachutes hardly at all. They weren't common issue. They were considered too dangerous and they had too many mishaps happen. Okay. The Germans used them, but they kept getting hung up on their plane. They'd get on the back manifold. All sorts of stuff would happen to them. So the Allied forces just said, they don't work. But also one of the reasons that they cited was because if you had an escape route, you would be less likely to try to save the very expensive plane which you were piloting.
So the plane was more expensive than the human, so...
The dead cost nothing.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So in an attempt to try to show that there was a better way, Tiny started working for the U.S. Army. She then became the first person to show the U.S. Army the use of a ripcord and of not being attached to a static line.
Okay.
So other men had done it before of jumping out of a plane without a static line. They were usually just holding the parachute in their arms and had to release it and hope it went up behind them. It was always not great. But using her father's ingenuity of the coat pack along with some other stuff that had come along down the line, she was actually on a test run trying to show them the static line, and the static line did in fact get stuck in the back rudder of the plane. So she was being, pulled along with the plane without a parachute.
It's horrible.
It's pretty bad. So the next time, whether it be that she was afraid of it happening again or just because she was like, hey, light bulb, why the hell are we doing this?
It's a mix of the two.
She cut her own static line and jumped out of the plane without any way of it coming out except for her own ripcord.
So the first free fall.
She did the first free fall ever was by a woman.
Huh.
And this makes it so that if you're a pilot that has to punch out, or if you're in a plane that's taking fire, you can clear the plane from any shrapnel or any debris that might either hit you or hit your parachute as it's opening up. Because in the early days of parachutes, a lot of times they would punch out, and then parts of the plane would actually land on them. So this gave you time to get clear of anything and then open up your parachute. She was also the first woman to jump out of a plane,
right?
Actually. Not just with the static line. She was the first woman in Los Angeles, I think it was. She jumped out of a moving airplane, how it's credited, at 900 feet, I think. And she was also the first to land in water to show the Army how useful that could be. That you wouldn't just have it fall on you and die from drowning.
Tiny was a total badass.
Tiny was a total badass. She did a total of something like 1,100 dives.
I think that cements that women were really one of the main pioneers of skydiving.
And now we have Amy Chimalicki on the Red Bull team. There have been a number of other women that have really helped move it forward, but it's also, I think, comes back to the fact, if you have the gumption, if you have the cojones to jump out of a plane, it really doesn't matter.
If you're a man or woman, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what your plumbing looks like as long as you pull that ripcord.
So I guess to wrap it up, would you consider skydiving to be the most feminine of extreme sports?
Well, I think we have to do a little bit more research, but I think that I can say, I think extreme sports might be the most feminist form of sport.
So extreme sports in general.
Extreme sports in general, it seems you're accepted as long as you've got the
gumption.
The gumption to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, that was really interesting. That was super interesting. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you later.